I can, yes.
Ron just texted me. He's having trouble connecting. He said he's been trying to text Rick.
I will send him the link similar. Second.
Okay. I'll give it 2 more minutes and to allow Councillor Gordon to join us. And we do have quorum, so we'll start. We'll call it 6:05. And I appreciate the patience of everyone attending.
I'm hoping this is maybe Councillor Gordon that I've just moved over.
Looks like it. Excellent. Welcome, Councillor Gordon. Welcome to all members of council. What's there? Okay. With that, I think we can begin. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the special session of council on Tuesday, December the 15th at 6 p.m. This session of council has been called specifically for the purpose of a public meeting regarding the Loyalist Township Official Plan. Call to order for 6:04. And first item on the agenda, next item on the agenda is the motion to adopt the agenda itself. Are there any edits or amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, can I get a motion to that effect? So moved by Councillor Townend, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Right. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Right. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none. I'm just noticing that the panelists list Councillor Buderick, but I'm not seeing Councillor Buderick.
You should see him now.
There we are. Welcome, Councillor Buderick.
Thank you.
And with that, I'll repeat my request. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we move to the first item on the agenda. The purpose of the meeting is the Loyalist Official Plan. A public meeting is being held to consider a proposed comprehensive amendment update to the Loyalist Township Official Plan in accordance with Section 1715 of the Planning Act. Loyalist Township is currently undertaking a review of its official plan under Sections 26 and 27 of the Planning Act. The official plan is a long-range planning policy document that manages land use, growth, and development over a 20-year horizon. The purpose and effect of the official plan review is to update the policies to conform with the provincial planning legislation, the provincial policy statements, and the County of Lennox and Addington official plan, as well as to consider comments by the public and agencies. Any person may participate in the public meeting to provide verbal comments and or to make written submissions. Do note that we have a number of people in the audience wishing to speak. I believe at this time we will be asking our staff to make a presentation with regard to our plan and the draft plan that is presented tonight. And I will then go to our audience and our public participation. And following that, I will ask council for its comments as well. And with that, I believe to the director to make introductions.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So the comprehensive review of the official plan commenced a little over 4 years ago, and this statutory public meeting was originally scheduled to take place in March of this year, but was rescheduled because of the challenges of hosting public meetings during a pandemic. But here we are. Our planning management team has prepared a presentation tonight highlighting the review process undertaken and the major revisions being proposed. I want to highlight that any comments received since February 2020, including those received tonight, will be reviewed and taken into account when the official plan comes back to council for final approval. And we're hoping that this will take place early in 2021. So I will pass the screen to Mr. Winicky and Ms. Furness to move forward with the presentation.
Thank you.
Can everyone see my screen?
I actually cannot at this point, unless your screen says scheduling made easy.
Oh, well, that is it. Hang on.
There we go.
That's better?
That's better.
Okay. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council, members of the public. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Just reflecting a little bit on this. This process actually began a year before I arrived in the township, so it seems like it's been going on for a long time. However, I am reminded that we've had two significant stalls along the way. The first one was the municipal election and the turnover of council. So as you know, before an election, council does not consider matters of significance. And so it was, I'd say, a good 6-month period before the new council was able to be briefed on the official plan and to be able to give us direction. And then, of course, this year with COVID, we had a public meeting scheduled in March, as MJ mentioned, and we had to defer that, and so there's another 9 months. So I think if you net out those things, we're actually not so bad. It took just over 2 years if you take that out. The slides you're about to see mirror what is in the staff report in the background and analysis section, so you can follow along in the report if you like, or just look on the screen. So without further ado, let's get started. The mayor already provided a little bit of background about what the official plan is. Section 26(1) of the Planning Act requires the plan to be reviewed every 5 years, or in the case of a new plan, we have 10 years to review it. The plan must conform, as mentioned, with provincial plans. In this case, we don't have a provincial plan in this region. Must have regard for provincial matters of interest, and be consistent with the policy statements issued in subsection 3. And so we've worked on the official plan to bring it up to date with both the 2014 provincial policy statement as well as the one released earlier this year by the province. So I'll start off with that in a moment. I mentioned we have to conform with the county official plan, which was approved in 2016. Direction was given to us to begin this update in August 2016. And since then, we've had several rounds of consultation with the ministries and the agencies that you see on the screen here. Starting with the provincial policy statement of 2014, some of the changes there included consideration for the potential impacts of climate change. This was done primarily by encouraging green infrastructure and strengthening stormwater management requirements, as well as to promote low impact design where possible. And because we have such shallow overburden in the township, we had to add that where possible, because it's not always possible to do LID design. We've added policies to encourage more rural-based business, such as permitting more on-farm diversified uses, things like agritourism, providing more flexibility around agricultural related uses. We have added policies to direct development outside of lands that are unsafe for development due to the presence of hazardous forest types for wildfire. We've recognized additional elements of healthy communities in new community design principles, and for example, planning for all ages of the population. And clarifying that municipalities can determine the appropriate locations for required intensification redevelopment opportunities, and that intensification targets should be based on local conditions. Further protection for major industries, corridors for goods and movement, and employment areas in close proximity to corridors and facilities. We've added, beefed up our policies with respect to asset management. We've identified all the natural heritage systems with updated mapping. We're now promoting the use of archaeological management plans and cultural plans in the OP. We've supported the community hub development concept. In other words, encouraging co-location of public facilities to facilitate service integration and to promote cost savings and accessibility. This would line up with the township's hub proposal, should that come forward again. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed a slide. Fell behind there. There is also the provincial policy statement that was issued just earlier this year. In that document, planning horizons were extended from 2036 to 2041. Now, Andrea will speak about this a little bit later. We've had discussions with the county, and we will be going back to 2036 because they've taken this approach with all the municipalities in the county. They must update their horizon first, and then we will be allowed to update ours. So that one change that you see in the draft red line document, the 2041, will go back to 2036 on the final. We've added more language regarding engaging Indigenous communities on land use planning matters, and to consider their interests when identifying, protecting, and managing cultural and heritage archaeological resources. We're permitting multiple unit housing in medium density designation. As I mentioned, additional climate change policies have been put in. The 2020 statement went even further than the 2014 statement in that regard, so we've upped ours a little bit as well. And promoting affordable housing, for example, by permitting one or more residential units in connection with the commercial or industrial use in the hamlet designation. I will now turn it over to my colleague Andrea to take you through the next few slides.
Thank you, Bowden. So the next slide, County of Lennox and Addington Official Plan. So as Bowden mentioned, our plan has been updated to conform with the county's plan that was completed in 2018. And some of the more significant changes that we've incorporated includes population and employment growth forecast to accommodate this growth to the year 2036. We've added intensification targets for Odessa, Bath, and Amherstview, and as well as a revised growth management strategy to direct the majority of the township's growth to the urban settlement areas. We've also permitting infill and minor rounding out of development on private services. So these would generally be the hamlets that are found in the township, provided that the sites are suitable to accommodate these private services. We've respected the direction given by the county to maintain our existing consent policies to only permit a maximum of 2 severances on a lot as of an identified eligibility date. So these policies that we currently have aren't proposed to change, with the exception that an additional severance could be obtained if property has more than 1 kilometer of road frontage. We've also added new policies and a schedule overlay to address select bedrock, being your aggregate resource areas. They do cover a significant portion of the township, and we worked with the county and also in reviewing other local municipal official plans, have developed defining rural clusters. So essentially allowing limited residential development to take place in these areas if they are in a defined rural cluster area, which we've identified as being a grouping of 4 to 6 residential homes or other non-agricultural units. We've updated the water and quantity policies. So this is essentially speaks to planning on a watershed basis, protecting municipal drinking water supply, as well as groundwater recharge areas. And there are new policies and mapping on karst topography and identifying these particular constraints and where assessments would be required and mitigation measures. I should note, just to allude a little bit more to what Bowden spoke to in regarding the county, we are expected to receive formal comments from them on this particular version of the draft official plan shortly. But we did have a meeting with them where they highlighted what they were going to be speaking to in these formal comments. One of them being, as Bowden mentioned, the planning horizon sticking to 2036. The provincial policy statement would allow us to now go up to 2041. However, the county prefer that we wait until their official plan is updated, so we're on the same planning horizon. So in the final draft going before council for adoption in February, we will be reverting back to that 2036. We also have some existing height and density provisions related to community benefits in the current proposed plan. And there has been some legislation changes in regards to community benefits. So we will need to reflect and update those. And in terms of intensification, since we have to monitor intensification and keep track of that we're meeting our intensification targets, the county suggested that a schedule be included to delineate the built boundary in the 3 urban settlement areas so that we can properly track and monitor if we are meeting our targets. Some other changes to reflect relevant policies and legislation. One of the biggest ones is permitting secondary units. So we currently permit them right now in the official plan, but only in the urban areas and only within a single detached dwelling. So in accordance with the Planning Act, we are expanding this to now allow second units in all new and existing single detached, semi-detached, and townhome dwellings. We are also permitting a second unit in a detached accessory building, so essentially a coach house that would be permitted in the rural, prime agricultural, and hamlet designations. And so these policies together further promote residential intensification and allow us to also comply with the Ontario housing policy statement. We've amended our open space acquisition policies to reflect the new payable rate when we're collecting cash in lieu for parkland at a rate of 1 hectare for 500 units, as opposed to the previous 1 hectare for 300 units. So that's in accordance with the Planning Act. And we've also updated to be consistent with the Human Rights Code, which requires that any policies that a municipality has that involves any separation distances between group homes and special care facilities should not be in place. And our current official plan does have policies that do speak to the zoning bylaw implementing these types of separation distances. So we have now removed those. And we also have new policies and an updated schedule to address source water protection in order to conform with the Cataraqui Region Source Water Protection Plan. So we do have new policies now on intake protection zones, vulnerable aquifers, and groundwater recharge areas, and an associated schedule that identifies those as well in conjunction with those policies. Some other revisions is that currently the official plan has blended together the natural heritage feature policies and the natural heritage policies, and they're also included lumped together in the same schedule in an environmental protection designation, which was becoming confusing to differentiate between the two. So in consultation with the Conservation Authority and the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, we're now delineating differently between the two and have developed a new natural hazard policy section, as well as a natural hazard overlay schedule in order to differentiate the two and know which policies apply in what situations. We've also updated the environmental protection area designation and environmental sensitive overlay in order to better clarify how these policies work together. They were very much blended in quite a bit in the current official plan and also became confusing to implement. And it was something the Conservation Authority really wanted to see in this new official plan. So we did update those and have added clarity around policies on what consists of adjacent lands, what are requirements for environmental impact statements, as well as policies related to species at risk. In the agricultural designation, we have updated policies to encourage on-farm diversified uses. So being like largely like agritourism type uses, farm-related commercial and industrial uses. So these are agricultural related type uses, as well as secondary units. Our estate residential land use policies are removed. So these were policies permitting essentially rural subdivisions. And in order to be consistent with targeting growth in the urban settlement areas, we have removed those policies. We have new policies to permit hobby farms in rural areas, as well as new urban agricultural policies. So this would be like permitting community gardens, rooftop gardens, orchards, things along those lines. We have developed policies to promote energy efficient design and orientation of development. So for example, maximizing vegetation in your urban settlement areas. And we've added a new section on dark sky policies. So these are largely intended to preserve the night sky, to minimize light trespass and any type of blinding glare. We have also included new policies to promote active transportation and crime prevention through environmental design. So this is essentially planning in a certain way to avoid crime. So implementing principles such as natural surveillance, keeping eyes on the street, introducing wider walkways. We've also updated the industrial land policies to allow for cannabis production facility to be permitted in the light and general industrial policies. Our cultural heritage policies have been updated. We have a new archaeological and marine archaeological section to be consistent with the provincial policy statement. Our community improvement plan policies have been expanded to identify that we may want to develop project areas to implement a community improvement plan for anywhere in the township, including the rural and agricultural areas, not just the hamlets and urban settlement areas, which the plan currently just speaks to. We've amended policies to reflect the repealing of the Green Energy Act. And this is significant because when initially beginning the official plan, the review, the Green Energy Act was in effect. And which in that case, there was very limited ability for municipalities to have any policies to regulate green energy facilities. But now that the act's been repealed, that is, we now have the ability to do so. So our policies reflect that and provide direction for renewable energy projects. Mapping has been revised to reflect recent updates, such as floodplain mapping from the Cataraqui Region Conservation Authority, and a number of our definitions have been expanded in order to expand definitions to be consistent with the provincial policy statement, as well as adding definitions for some of our new uses, such as urban gardens, agricultural gardens, just in, so to help with implementation. And just to note, this is a lot, but it still isn't the complete comprehensive list of some of the changes that have been done. There's also been a number of housekeeping amendments, a lot of restructuring that occurred in the plan, and a lot of policies just to provide additional clarity and better assist in terms of interpreting some of these official plan policies. So that's been included as well. So I think that's it for me, and I'll turn it back to Bowden to conclude the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. So some of the more recent comments we've received as of today. We got one, so we have 3 written comments. So those will be incorporated into our analysis and be brought back for council in the final document returns. Comments were also received from the Cataraqui Regional Conservation Authority and the Quinte Conservation Authority, as well as some further comments from the Ministry of Natural Resources and, as mentioned just now, from the county, although we don't have them in writing yet. We've continued to make some minor amendments to the natural hazard schedule and the policies to provide more clarity. Again, as Andrea mentioned, we've continued to try and refine the differences between these designations and this overlay. So that work's continued over the last few months when we've been locked down in COVID. We've corrected some of the features with adjacent lands that were previously identified in the protection area. So we are correcting some of the features there. Earth Sciences ANSI and on adjacent lands corrected to being 50 meters rather than 120 meters. We've clarified what the appropriate distance for a new salvage yard should be to a water body. That issue came up. And we've revised the definition of development to mirror the definition in the provincial policy statement now. And I just note that Schedule F will be updated as further karst information in the township becomes known. So that more or less concludes our staff presentation on the changes, the key changes that were made. I just would like to point out, though, even once the official plan is adopted by council, we still have to make all the corresponding changes to the zoning bylaw. That's when it really becomes implemented. So that will be happening over the course of 2021. Thank you, Your Worship. I turn it back to you, and we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minneke and Ms. Furness for that presentation. Can I get you to stop sharing for me so that I can see all the members? Thank you. It makes it easier. And before, I understand that council may have a number of questions, but this being a public meeting, I would like to go to the attendees and allow them to make their comments first. Just advising all members of the audience, as you wish to speak, I would ask you to use the raised hand symbol to indicate your desire to speak, as I see one person already has. And when I get through all the hands, I will ask, I know there's a number of people, or at least one person on phone, so I will ask verbally for that person to speak up at that time. I'll go to the clerk to bring in people with raised hands for public comment. See, we have Ms. Lorelei Jones. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you.
Great.
Go ahead with your comments then.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I'm here tonight on behalf of Caitlin with respect to lands that they own in the village of Bath, specifically with respect to lands on the east side of County Road 7 opposite Loyalist Boulevard and the golf course community that's there. I don't have specific comments that I wanted to make about the draft official plan policies and changes per se. What I did want to do was to just share a bit of information with you with respect to upcoming development in that area, and it's something that Caitlin is quite excited about. So the lands that are on the east side of County Road 7, they are now looking to expand the golf course to the east side of County Road 7, expand new clubhouse facilities, recreational facilities. They're also interested in doing a hotel in conjunction with those facilities, as well as looking at some seniors development, which would include seniors apartments, long-term care facilities, and residential development. They think it'll be an exciting new development, the golf course community that's there now, and we are just sort of starting into a process of putting together a development concept. We recognize that there's a lot of work that we need to do in order to come in with a proper application. But the reason that I wanted to identify this for council tonight is the fact that we will be requiring an official plan amendment in order to implement the concept that we're currently working on. Some of it will be with respect to the current land use designations. And some of it will be that we are interested in putting some of this development on lands that are currently identified as fringe area. And the reason for that is that they happen to be right along County Road 7. And so there's an interest in making sure that this future development, which is going to tie into the existing golf course, has that frontage and that connection. And it will also tie into the fact that we are trying to sort of focus a lot of the development where possible on lands that are currently being farmed and therefore lower environmental constraints for development. So we're not trying to, slow down the official plan review process. We simply wanted to make council aware that we would be coming in with this official plan amendment application sometime next year, which will be sort of fairly shortly after you adopt the official plan, and not something that we normally like to do, but there's just so much work to get done to come in with an application that we're not able to make the township's timeline for adoption of their OP. So those are my comments. Just wanted to sort of advise council of that. We certainly want to work with the township as things go forward, but we just wanted to give you a heads up.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jones. I appreciate the heads up, and it sounds like a very exciting project, certainly. And I know that you'll work with staff to figure out the appropriate timelines for those applications. Just one quick question that I have to Mr. Winnicky with regard to that. Is there a window of time that someone could not bring forward an official plan amendment application while this OP amendment process is ongoing?
Well, that's a good question. I would have to take a closer look at the act. There are certain restrictions. So, and of course, the county, while they're reviewing the official plan, we're not sure how long that'll take. Hopefully it won't take that long. When we met with them, they were fairly comfortable with what they saw. And so during that period, I don't believe we definitely can't entertain anything, but I will look into that a little further to be precise.
Thank you. I would like that information back and provided to council, but I know that you'll work with Ms. Jones and that development team to bring forward the applications as appropriate. Is there anything else, Ms. Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. And then I will ask for the next presenter from the audience. Welcome, Roger. You are currently muted. We can't hear you.
Then I shall unmute.
We can hear you now. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Mayor, and members of council and staff. I'll keep my comments to my pet project, my focus on the business park. During the last election, all the successful candidates I talked to seemed to desire the expansion of the commercial industrial tax base. One of the ways was to promote the Loyalist East Business Park, and in doing this by expanding the allowable uses. I won't repeat a couple of the comments about what should be and shouldn't be allowed, but I was very disappointed to see that this did not happen, or it is well hidden. The only increase in usages that I saw was the addition of the cannabis production. Increasing these uses would better reflect the name business park, and I think promote better development in that area. I was also looking for some indication that incentives being used by the city of Kingston, such as forgiving development and impost fees, would be addressed. These changes would increase development and would be made back very quickly in property taxes. I would like to see lots more property taxes being realized in the business park. I see we have some new road building and some good things going on, but I think more can be done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Coburn. Okay. And I will ask for the next presenter.
Mr. Armitage?
Mr. Armitage, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Thank you, and we can hear you now.
And
And see you.
unfortunately, you might be able to see me now. It's always good to follow my friend Roger. I've always found him best when he's on mute. Mayor, members of council, congratulations to staff for a job really well done. I've got no particular comment about the text of the OP, but I would like ask council to think of this more as a visionary document into the future. And I understand the reason for 2036, but we need to look beyond that. You know, it was more than half a century ago, one of the greatest visionaries in our municipality, Bill Henderson, said that he was going to create a small town. And I think what we need to do to look beyond that is to at least identify future development areas. 2036, yeah, that's great. That's not very exciting. We know that the 250 acres west of County Road 6 is the next development area. But we need to think beyond that. We need to have a bit of a vision. Where are we going after that? And to me, there's two areas. North on County Road 6, because we've got sewer and water services along that road. And we need to, I think, identify and protect and encourage lands in that area. I think there's another area we need to look at, and that's the mile square block. And I know that municipalities are limited by someone who 200 or 300 years ago drew a line on a piece of paper, and it goes up the middle of Coronation Boulevard, and it says that Loyalist is on one side and City's on the other. But the mile square block, which I know really well, it's got 1,000 acres. And that is the most likely viable development area as the city fills up. But there's a problem. City Council, almost 10 years ago, said, we're not going to have any more development areas. We're not going to do any more greenfield development. And so in the old Kingston Township Official Plan, that was identified as a future development area. So council of the day, in its wisdom, in the last official plan review, took it out of future development area and now just calls it agricultural. And by the way, I've got no financial interest in that property. But here's where the lack of vision, looking at 50 years, can come back and bite you. Kingston Township, almost 50 years ago, hired Gordon Story to do a master sewer and water plan. And the official plan of the day said the west limit of Kingston Township will be Collins Bay Road. So now I was involved for a long time on the mile square block with the Davies family. If you want to service that with sewer and water, there is no capacity from mile square all the way to the sewage plant behind the old Invista plant. It's millions and millions of dollars to get capacity there. The natural way for that to be developed with sewers actually to link into the Loyalist Township sewage system. And I think that that from an official plan point of view, from a visionary point of view, we need to confront the reality that our next development area may not be in our municipality, but we may be the key to sewer water services, particularly sewer. We've already got an integrated water system with the city, somewhat grudgingly, I guess. So I just ask that council look beyond 2036 and look at it as Bill Henderson would. Like what are we going to see in 50 years, and where will we be, and what will we look like? I think there's a lot of wisdom in linking Odessa and Amherst-View. But a linear development like that seems to not make a lot of sense. So this is just it's an issue that's not being talked about that I think we need to confront. Sewer capacity is the elephant in the room. We can do all the planning we want, but boy, do we need to roll our sleeves up and solve that problem. The other thing is, I think an official plan, we should have a spirit of permissiveness. This is what you can do. Let's not talk about what you can't do. You know, there's a lot of issues that if the official plan gets it right, because next you'll be jumping into a zoning bylaw, and I'll have the same comments with that zoning bylaw, is that zoning bylaws miss the mark in this country. They're always telling you what you can't do. I mean, they tell you can't have a lot below this size. People are saying we should build tiny homes to solve the homeless problem and to help veterans who are hard up. You can't show me where you can build something less than 900 square feet here. Backyards. Who can build a deck in their backyard in these new subdivisions now without asking for a minor variance? Apartments. We need to address, why has there not been an apartment development in Loyalist Township in 35 years? Just think about that, 35 years. Why? And I think municipal policies have to address that. And I'd encourage planning to do a real solid analysis of your minor variances over the last 10 years, because a lot of them are unnecessary if we get it right in the zoning bylaw and the OP. One further comment, the word industrial to me is an anachronism from the last century. I'd encourage using the term employment lands. Industry implies smokestacks. We don't have that anymore. And I think that term industrial should go the way of the dodo bird. Demand drivers. We may be surprised at the amount of growth we're going to see in Loyalist Township. Going back to my earlier comments about the city, when the city decided there'd be no more greenfield development, the land became dominated by a very few developers. These developers have sold land only to their sister building company and perhaps one other company. There's half the developers in the area that there was 10 years ago. There's half the builders that there was 10 years ago. There's less competition for land. There's less competition for houses. With less competition and increasing demand, prices come up. We saw an influx of over 300 recent immigrant investor purchases of houses in this area, more than 1 year's demand of new homes, new single detached homes and townhouses, semis. And that, on top of those restrictions, has led to a price explosion. And those of us who've got kids or grandchildren that want to get into the market must be just shaking our heads. Why? The answer to price, believe it or not, municipal governments have to accept their role here. The city has put its head in the sand. It's been told by its staff that the reason for these high prices is because there's developers that won't develop their land. Wrong. The role of a municipality is to ensure that there's more supply than there is demand. When there's more supply of available lots than there is demand, prices will be controlled. And I take it out of housing, and let's think, we all go shopping. If the food store is overflowing with heads of lettuce, you're going to buy lettuce at an all-time low. If there's a shortage because of problems, lettuce goes up in price, and houses are no different than lettuce. So we need to make sure, looking out 50 years, that we're preparing for that demand. And two big things are changing the demand cycle here. One I just talked about was the city's restrictions, this misguided belief that will force anybody who wants to live in the city to live downtown in an apartment or a condo. And then, of course, you can't get anything approved downtown, which is part of the problem. But the other one is this COVID pandemic, I think, is going to change things in ways we haven't seen yet. Two things: work at home. The number of neighbors I have in Amershey who are now working at home, who are telling me their quality of life has never been better. Employers, I think, are going to find that productivity is up, if not no worse. And these people may, by the way, have the time to build a deck this summer while they're supposedly a pandemic, and they're really productively employed. We're going to see more people with homework in here. The other thing we're seeing now is people leaving the big cities. The pandemic is driving people out of the big cities. And we're seeing increasing housing demand now from people that understand they can work remotely now. Maybe they only need to take the train to Toronto once a month or once every 2 weeks or once a week, but they want to live in a safe community. And we all know that where people are dying and getting sick from this pandemic is where the population densities are the highest. And so I took a look at the population study that was done. I take it as a grain of salt. It could be off by a factor of half. I have a concern about the increasing emergence of the county official plan. I hope we're not going towards a two-tiered planning process with a county official plan. I'd be very concerned if the tail started wagging the dog on that one. I think the county official plan should be conforming to the Loyalist plan. I don't think it should be the other way around. We're the driver of urban development here. We decide what we want. We tell the county. And the last two comments, just coming back to my main theme, is my request of council. I know you get buried with mountains of paper every council meeting, but just sit back and be visionaries and look at the future. What are we going to look like in the future? And that goes way beyond a very limited official plan to 2036. Believe me, 16 years ago, like nothing. And the only last thing is I looked at the strategic plan, which I was part of a committee that developed and presented to council in the fall of 2014. It was adopted by council December of 2014. And then I looked at the strategy at a glance, 2019 to 2023. And one thing in common in those is the need for staff to understand that customer service is paramount. And I worked as a municipal employee. My first job was an assistant engineer for the city of Brockville. And I've got the highest respect for municipal employees because they do what they believe their masters want. And you, as the employer, have got to drive, and as we put it in our committee in 2014 in our presentation to council, and Paul Blay actually worked it into his report, we need wow in customer service. How can we differentiate Loyalist Township from everybody else out there that's trying to do the same thing? There's only one way. When somebody walks in the front door, as I have recently, they should go, oh my God, you won't believe, they should go back and tell everybody, you won't believe the service I just received. I sent them a letter and I got a reply acknowledging it in 24 hours. It shouldn't take a month to reply to a letter. And so I really believe that council, as part of this vision and to separate us from the herd, need to put the wow back into service. And that concludes my comments. Sorry for being so long-winded.
Thank you very much, Mr. Armitage. And your comments are appreciated. And to the clerk, we have the next person with their hand up.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. This is Mr. Leclerc.
Thank you. That's me. Thank you.
Welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff. My name is Yuko Leclerc. I'm a registered professional planner with Foten Planning and Design in Kingston. We have been retained by the Kingston Home Builders Association KHBA to support their review of the draft amendments to the township's official plan. The KHBA represents the interests of the home building industry in the region, and including builders, developers, professional services, renovators, suppliers, and the many, many trades that are integral to home construction. The KHBA are a key stakeholder in helping the township to achieve its housing targets as required by the provincial policy statement, and they have a particular interest in undertaking a detailed review of the draft official plan and the supporting documents, and consulting with staff and council on matters that affect the interests of the organization itself, their members, and the township at large. We have reviewed the draft official plan that was released on November 23rd and are working with the KHBA to formulate comments on their behalf. We would like to thank staff for the effort that has clearly gone into the draft official plan and for presenting the changes, the proposed changes so clearly, make our job that much easier. The purpose of our submission this evening and of the letter that we submitted earlier today is simply to let council know that the KHBA are engaged in this process and they will be providing comments through FO10 by December 23rd. The KHBA then want to meet with township staff to discuss those comments, and we're therefore asking the council not make any decisions with respect to the draft OP update before that consultation with township staff takes place. Now, I understand from comments made this evening that it looks like it'll likely be February before this comes back to council for a decision. So I suspect we'll have plenty of time to undertake that consultation before then. And we just wanted to make that comment. And with that, I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Leclerc. We greatly appreciate it. And my understanding of the timing that we're looking at would be February before this comes back. I'll just confirm that with Mr. Windicky or Ms. Furness.
Yes, that is correct. We are at this point looking at the February council date.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Leclerc?
It is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Back to the clerk. Can you identify any further speakers?
Through your worship, I have no other hands up, and the telephone, the person who's on the telephone is no longer here that I can see to ask them. So I guess just ask again if there's any that they'd raise their hand.
And kind of a last chance. I see no other hands. Okay. I will take this opportunity to say thank you for those who are attending, both for those that are attending to watch, listen, and learn, but also those who have provided comments. At this time, I will turn to council for its comments. Members. And I'll go to Councillor Porter.
Yes, Your Worship, if I may indulge council, I have several comments that I would like to go down a list of amendments I would like to see happen to the official plan. I would like to follow that up with three motions. One to, well, I'll get to those motions afterwards, but I'll just give you notice that I do have motions after I go through my comments.
Thank you.
So I did take the time. I'm working from a document that was on the website that I pulled off and printed 2 weeks ago. So I hope that it hasn't changed in the last 2 weeks. And I've gone through the document itself several times. I've spent a lot of time on this over the last month or so. So I'm just going to go, and I think the easiest way, because I have 2 or 3 pages of comments, I think the easiest way is just to follow along the plan, go in order of the sections of the plan. So the first I want to start with is section 1.2 under the forward. And what it says is the plan outlines the township goals. Wait a minute, sorry, 1.2 purpose. The third paragraph, it says update current policies and designations, and it's struck out while having regard to and inserted be consistent with. I'd like to see that go back to while having regard to. It also goes on to say be consistent with the official plan for the County of Lennox and Addington. Now, when the County of Lennox and Addington never used to have an official plan, and years ago they were asked to develop one. And as a council member at that time, and I believe any other council member that was on council at the time, the intent was that it would be a consolidation of the official plans of the lower tier municipalities. And then it would be the lower tier municipalities that are developing the official plan, and it would be the county's role to be consistent with our plans. Last time I checked, democracy goes from the ground up, not from the sky down. So it's important that our wording reflects that goal and that purpose. So I don't believe the word consistent should be in there. I think it should be, and I've got it worded here. We should add the words that take into consideration the provincial policy statement and which contribute to forming the basis of the official plan for the County of Lennox and Addington. So that's the wording change I would like to see occur. And it's really important that we as a council, as a municipality, remember our role in this, and that the power of the municipal council not be further eroded and given over to the county when that was never the intent. And you know, I believe the mayor could probably speak to that a little bit more should he so desire. Moving on to 1.3, the last paragraph, where it says, where there's a conflict between the County of Lennox and Addington official plan and the township's official plan, the county plan shall prevail to the extent of the conflict. And that again is contrary to what the intent was of the county's official plan development. I think the wording should be changed to consultation and discussion between the two entities shall be sought to resolve the conflicting policy, failing which the least restrictive provision shall prevail. Yes, a question about 1.5 township seat of Odessa. I presume that just means the village of Odessa. So I don't know why we have township seat as a description. If that's an old description, maybe that needs to be updated. So down to 1.9, the last paragraph. How do I write it? I think we should keep the review every 5 years and not let it go for 10 years. So I suggest I would like to see it amended to remove every 10 years, keep every 5 years from the date official plan comes into effect. Paragraph 2.2.1.12. And bear with me, I know I'm taking a lot of time here. So one comment I have about this is that in all my years of council and throughout this document, it is embedded into the document in many different places, in that it says that council does not desire rural development. And I don't know where that comes from. I've been on council, this is my 3rd term, and I've never heard council speak those words before. And so I think rural development needs to be appropriate. Rural development needs to be encouraged and supported. So I'd like to say in amend that section 0.12 to remove existing settlement areas and add rural development is encouraged. Appropriate rural development is encouraged. And then on to section 3.5.1.2. It says here, council will generally direct development to the urban settlement areas where full municipal services are available. I think we should also add to that we will also encourage appropriate development to the, sorry, we should remove direct and insert the word encourage development. So it should read, council will generally encourage development to the urban settlement areas as opposed to direct the development there. Same with section 3.5.1.3. It says to direct residential intensification and infilling to urban settlement areas of Amherst, Bath, and Odessa. That word direct should also be updated to encourage residential intensification and infilling. And then on to 3.7.1.2. Yeah, here again, I like to see the word, I'd like to amend that so that it says to ensure new development rather than is consistent, should be has regard with to the provincial policy statement. We don't want our policies the exact same as the provincial policies. We want our policies to reflect the provincial policies, but not be necessarily identical to them. 3.7.1.4. And I would just like to add a word there under stormwater management and transportation studies, if appropriate, are prepared and submitted. 3.7.1.7. Yeah, so this is to ensure that the development servicing satisfies requirements of the health unit. Now, with the change over to the municipality taking care of that, I'm wondering that probably should be removed. 3.8.19. Again, I think it should read to encourage that future development in the township occurs on publicly maintained roads and only when it is feasible. Sorry, let me read that again. To encourage the future development in the township occurs along publicly maintained roads and only on privately maintained roads when safe and appropriate to do so. 3.11. I think the word neighboring Aboriginal communities could be put in that paragraph. So to promote cooperation and coordination of township actions with those of surrounding municipalities, as well as other surrounding or neighboring Aboriginal communities. 3.11.1.3. The word meaningful, I think consulting should always be meaningful. And I think that's sort of an oxymoron right there. To consult with Aboriginal communities, I don't think we need the word meaningfully. That's implying that all of other consultations are not. 3.12.1.2. To find it, 3.12.1.2. I presume the copy that I have has handwritten add impact to residents. I presume the intent is to add that, and I would like to see that added. And then 4.2.3B. 4.2.3B. Yeah, I'm not sure why this is here, and maybe we can have that as at a further discussion, but says here, the rural settlement pattern will contain very limited residential development. And again, I'm not sure where that has come from. I said earlier, I've been on council for 3 years and council's never directed for that. So I think it's an older direction of council that needs to be updated. I think that it should say, see, it says council envisages that the rural settlement pattern will contain very limited residential development. I certainly don't envisage that. And I think that needs to be removed. And it needs to be updated. I think it should read the rural settlement pattern will continue to grow and flourish. Appropriate residential growth by consent of non-prime agricultural lands will be encouraged in the hamlets of Millhaven, Morven, Stella, Wilton, and rural areas where feasible and appropriate. Uh, 5.2.2. I. Sorry, I have to find it. Yes, so here again is an area as good example of where we cannot erode our municipal authority, and words have the ability to do so. And I think it's really important that the words reflect our intent without eroding the municipality's responsibility and authority. And so this is a good example. Where it says the EIA must be deemed satisfactory by the Conservation Authority and the township. I think it could read better. In consultation with the Conservation Authority and ministries, the EIA must be deemed satisfactory by the township. And it's the same thing, but just a little bit wording that does not help to erode our municipal authority. Section so section 5.2, the same section, instead of I, we'll go down to O. It says here, environmental protection areas shall not be acceptable as part of the dedication for park purposes under the Planning Act. I think to keep flexibility, we should have as much flexibility in our official plan as we can. And I think in every individual case needs to be looked at as an individual case, because it may very well be a land that the municipality wants to own. So I think it should read, EPA should not be acceptable as part of the dedication unless the township directs otherwise. And that's just adding a few words to give us that flexibility. 5.2.3.2, I promise I'm getting to the end. 5.2. Okay. Yeah, so 5.2.3.2.1, I think we should add the words if appropriate. So it says here what was added was in addition consideration, and this is new, in addition consideration through an environmental impact assessment if appropriate. Of 120 meters of adjacent lands must occur for development or site alteration near fish habitat. So I think through an environmental impact assessment, if appropriate, should be added. 5.5 5.2.5. B. So again, it's the same principle of not eroding the municipality's authority or responsibility. It says here, development or reconstruction in flood or erosion prone areas may be permitted where it has been demonstrated to the satisfaction of the township and conservation authority. And it's just a tweak in words saying that it has been demonstrated in consultation with the conservation authority to the satisfaction of the township. 5.3.2.2. Okay, so 5.3.2.2 triple I. It says here, a secondary dwelling on a farm built for the purposes of accommodating a farm laborer shall not be severed from the farm unit. I believe we should add to that, unless such severance meets the rules of consent in the official plan to do so. And then on to 5.3.2.3. IV or 4. Again, that should, it says 5.3.2.3 IV. To find it, make sure I'm at the right. Again, we should add the sentence unless, it goes on to say consent will not be permitted, and we should add unless it meets the rules of consent to do so. I'm sure that was the intent, but I just want to make sure it's clear in our OP. 5.3.2.3A. Yeah, so here it says that a severance for the creation of a parcel for an estate, winery, cidery, farm winery, cidery, or microbrewery shall not be smaller than 40 hectares for lands designated prime agricultural area, or smaller than 8 hectares for lands designated rural. I'm not sure where that 40 hectares came from, but I think it should be amended to read 20 hectares, which is 50 acres, which is the recognized farm size of the OFA. And 8 hectares for lands designated, that's fine. 5.3.2.3. Okay, so that was C in the same section under F. Bullet point 7 says here, upon lands that are not designated as prime agriculture area, small scale restaurants may be permitted where it is clearly demonstrated that such uses are only accessory to and complement the estate, winery, or cidery. These shall only be permitted on a case-by-case basis and be subject to site-specific amendment to the zoning bylaw. So we have each case, as it says, clearly demonstrates in this paragraph that it's going to be decided upon as a case-by-case basis. But I think we should take out the upon lands that are not designated as prime agriculture area. I think we should take out prime agriculture area because I think it needs to be looked at as a case-by-case basis for all of them, both prime and non-prime. Then we go down to G, the last bullet. So, and then it goes on to say, upon lands that are not designated as prime ag area, larger scale agritourism uses accessory to estate wineries or cideries, such as banquet facilities, large restaurants, and accommodation facilities will require an amendment to this plan. And then it goes on to say, restaurants, banquet facilities, and large-scale tourism uses are not permitted within an agriculture designated area. But I think it should read that they are permitted on a case-by-case review basis, because we've seen that. We saw that with the McKinnon Brothers farm wanting to turn that barn into a banquet hall. And I think we need to at least have wording in there that allows us to at least look at it without having to do an official plan amendment. And then 5.3.2.5 BII. Yeah, so in here, it references the requirements of the health unit, and I believe that needs to be removed as well, because the health unit is no longer doing that, and the municipality has taken on that responsibility. 5.5.1, and I've only got 6 more, promise. 5.5, and then I'm done. Can you hear my mouse scrolling? Okay, 5.5.1, paragraph 3. I think it says here, it is the intent of this plan to permit some development throughout the rural designation in a manner which retains a rural character. I believe it should read, we should remove the word permit, some, and add the word permit appropriate development throughout the rural designation. And then 5.5.2, estate residential has been striked out. I'd like it put, I think it needs to stay, and I'd like the amendment to have that unstriked. And remove the word limited non-farm residential and replace it with appropriate non-farm residential. And 5.7.1.5. Triple I. Let's find it. All right, so when we get into this section 5.7.1.5.6 and 0.7, there's a couple of changes I think are appropriate. So in G, applications for medium density, and this goes to this talks to the density and talks to what one of the presenters did speak about as well in regards to apartments. Applications for new medium density designations will be considered in accordance with following criteria. And it goes on to say, have convenient access to a major street and not draw traffic through low density residential areas. And I think the word if feasible and or if supported by a traffic study needs to be added to that. as you know, our municipality is very diverse, and if we're not careful, the language will not permit apartments anywhere outside of major centers, and I don't believe that's the intent. Also have convenient, the requirement says it has to have convenient access to transit routes. That needs to read if applicable. You know, if there's no transit routes in Odessa or Wilton or any of the surrounding areas where somebody might want to put up apartments, and that would not allow them to do so because there is no transit routes. So that needs to read if applicable. 5.7.1.7C. So instead of the word, okay, here it reads, high density residential sites shall have direct vehicular access to collector or arterial roads. That I propose that we change from shall to should, where feasible and readily available. Again, we don't want to negate all areas of our township where there is no large collector roads. I mean, most of our township do not have collector roads. And 5.8.2.3. So 5.8.2.3 general development policies says here, hamlet growth and density shall be based on the long-term capability of the soil and groundwater to support individual wells and subsurface systems. And what's been added is with no negative impact. That's impossible. We should have with minimal negative impact. Section 6.2.3. And this is just more of a housekeeping issue. I don't believe our official plan should advise people what the Ministry of Transportation will do or not do, or be responsible for or not be responsible for. So that wording needs to be cleaned up, probably to say something like their current policies indicate, rather than the Ministry of Transportation will not be responsible for any impact. We shouldn't speak to what their responsibilities are or not in our official plan. And then section 7.3.1.7. I can see everybody's faces are just hating me right now. 7.3. Oh, come on. If the pages had been numbered, this would have made the job a lot easier for me, just so you know. There's no numbers on these pages, otherwise I'd be able to scroll right to the page. 7.3. One. 7. Okay, so 7.3.1.7. Innovative measures will be considered to promote the production of affordable housing. Such measures may include reduced road right-of-way, innovative zoning standards, innovative housing designs. And I think we should make a point of adding innovative housing designs such as tiny houses and micro units. And I think it's important for us to be looking at those types of things. And then 7.3.3 V11, and again, that should be added unless it meets the rules of consent. And that, and this is the last one, 10.12 V1. $10.12B1. Sure. The very last paragraph of 10.12.B.1 reads, where proponent questions the need or requirement of any of the above studies assessments, the final decision will reside with the Township Chief Administrative Office in consultation with the mayor. I would like to add to that this will not negate the ability for the proponent to appeal this decision to council. So for example, if they're still not happy with the CAO's decision and the mayor's, that nothing says they can't appeal that to council. And that's it for the amendments I would like to see happen on the official plan. I do have several reports, and I'm ready to do a motion anytime you're willing or ready to accept one.
Thank you, Councillor Porter. Certainly a good deep dive into the official plan, and I appreciate your efforts on that. Before I go to your motions or your requests for reports, I will ask council, other members of council, if they have questions with regard to your suggestions, questions with regard to anything that they've individually found, whatever. But I will come back to you for your requests for reports and motions. Councillor Buderick, go ahead.
Love how thorough Councilor Porter was, and I support her in all of the amendments, actually. She's done a fantastic job, and her insight and interest in how things are going forward and her long-term tenure with the township has been fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And other members of council? Seeing none at this time, I will come back to Councillor Porter. You suggested that you had some motions and some requests for reports. Go ahead.
Okay, and I could do this in 3 separate motions, but I think I'm going to do it all in one. And if it doesn't move forward, I'll revise them and do new motions separately. But I move the amendments requested be integrated into the draft official plan, and the amended draft official plan be referred to the committee of the whole for a further review. I also move that the following reports be requested from staff and brought to the committee of the whole for review. Report number 1, the rules of consent. I would like a report outlining the impact to our municipality if we were to adopt the same rules of consent as the township of Stone Mills for our rural areas. Report number 2. I'd like a report to come from staff in regards to section 10.22.46, the definition of residential units. And I'd like the report to address options to address the disparity between large units and small units. I think it's really important that we address the need for smaller units, micro units, and tiny units, as this seems to be the trend to help with our fight against climate change, as well as affordable housing. Report number 3, I'd like a list of all the official plan amendments, and just a brief list, like just a one-liner list of what they were, a list of official plan amendments, and a list of minor variances that have come before us in the last 2 to 3 years. It would be better if there was 5, but I don't think there was a lot of official plan amendments requests, but I'm not sure the list of minor variances, and I don't want to be too onerous. So if you can go back 5 years, that'd be great. If you can't, 2 or 3 years would be fantastic. I also move that all of the comments received from council and the public that were not addressed by the request for reports or request for the amendments to the draft of the official plan be listed with notations on how they have or have not been addressed in the draft and be brought forward to a committee of the whole meeting for review. So that is my motion.
Okay, I'll accept that motion. Does the staff have clarity on the motion?
I believe so. We have 3 reports, one on the rules of consent and contrasting us with what Stone Mills has. Another report dealing with the size of units, the range, I guess, that we would permit. And the third, a list of all the OPAs, minor variances for the last few years.
Yes.
And that all the amendments be integrated and referred to the committee of the whole.
And the most important thing, sorry.
Go ahead, Councillor.
The most important thing is that there were several valid and very important comments made tonight, and written and verbal comments. And I'd like to see those in writing, and I'd like to see them brought to the committee of the whole. So I guess, and I'll explain further. I won't babble on it until the motion's
So,
accepted.
so staff has that clarity. And do I have the clerk? Yes.
If we could get that, if it's written, if you could forward that to us, just so that we have that information.
Absolutely, I will.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go further, do I have a seconder for that motion? It's Councillor Buderick is seconder. Okay. And so we have staff clarity. We will, the mover will provide it in writing to the clerk and staff. I'll go back to the mover for comments.
Yeah, I think it's, this is a very important document, and I know that it has been a little bit discombobulated because we had our open houses, we had our public open house or public meeting last spring, and then there was a long period of time when you know, nothing was done for obvious reasons, and so it's been a bit on and off, and memory can fail, and memory doesn't serve us well at times. So I think it's premature to ask staff to bring this official plan back to council meeting for enactment. I think it should go to a committee of the whole first for review, also to talk about some of those comments tonight and how we can integrate them into the official plan if possible. You know, some very good comments were well received as far as, you know, being visionaries and looking ahead to our future. Where does our future hold? And I think a good thorough discussion of those things need to occur. And I think a committee of the whole is the most appropriate venue for that.
Thank you, Councillor. Seconder, do you have comment?
We had a speaker this evening earlier who is a stakeholder in what goes on in the township, and he spoke of a larger look at the future, and I think Councillor Porter is trying to project that, and it's basically where council should be looking, as well as the people who are trying to grow with this municipality, and I think it's a good welcome partnership.
Thank you. Other comments? Councillor Townend.
With absolutely zero disrespect to Councillor Porter, and without comments with respect to her particular comments, I won't be voting in favor of the motion simply because I think this is highly irregular. This is a public meeting. It is not within order, as far as I'm concerned, for council to be making comments, which we can submit to staff on our own. Neither is it within order, as far as I'm concerned, to accept motions, particularly none that have been given notice, and when there is no portion on the agenda assigned to it. So on that procedural basis, I don't think I can support progressing with where this is going.
I understand your comments. My ruling is that the motion is in order because it is applied to a draft and seeks further information. Council members are also public members and are allowed to make comments about our official plan. Are there any other members of council who who wish to make comment at this time? Deputy, go ahead.
It's actually just a question back to the mover for clarification. There were the three reports that were requested, and then I was trying to write them down so I could keep it straight. There was another one. There was a list of all comments. I think, was that a fourth report, or was that just
No.
information that you would like to come back to the committee of the whole?
Yeah, no, it's just information. I'd like to come back to the committee of the whole. I tried to write all the comments from our delegates tonight, but I couldn't keep up with them. So I'm hoping that they submitted their comments in writing. Typically they do. And I'd like to make sure the committee of the whole gets those.
Okay, I struggled to keep up. I couldn't write as fast as they could talk. So, okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Parks, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to say I will be supporting this. I think any requests that we can get for further information and clarification is well warranted to explore those. And I appreciate the time that Councillor Porter's put into this.
Thank you. Other comments? Back to the mover.
I think I've said everything, so no further question, no further.
Thank you. With that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you very much.
Is there anything further from council at this time? Just going back to my agenda. We have a recommendation on the report of 4.2. That recommendation reads that the report from the Manager of Development Services, Economic Growth and Community Development, December the 15th, read the official plan comprehensive review be received, and that any public and agency comments received since February 10th, 2020, including those received at tonight, be reviewed and taken into account when the official plan returns to council for final approval. The motion that we just heard speaks to exactly that, except that it asks for it to bring back to the committee of the whole. So I would look for a motion to the portion of the recommendation to receive the draft for information, as well as any comments made tonight. Deputy, so moved. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Parks. Thank you. Any comments? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And we move to adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Okay. Councillor Buderick, second by Councillor Gordon. Okay. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. We are adjourned. I will say once again, thank you very much to the audience members and all of council for your engagement with this very important process to move towards getting our official plan updated. So thank you all and have a good evening.
Thank you, everybody. And Merry Christmas to everybody. I don't think we'll meet again.
Merry Christmas, folks.
Merry